We're live.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another fun and festive month of December, where we are going to be going on since Santa decided to make me an elf this year. Um, we are going to be going on about some holiday films this month. So, Jake, why don't you tell us what movie we have in store for tonight?
All right, we have a classic film from back in 1993. Film released by Disney Pictures, although at the last minute they bitched out and put it out under Touchstone before eventually deciding to reclaim it. And that is the Henry Selick directed Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas. Which a stop motion animation film, one of the first that had come out in a good long while, and arguably one of the classic stop motion animations of all time. Certainly one of the more influential ones. The bare bones description per IMDb is Jack Skellington, king of Halloween Town, discovers Christmas Town, but his attempts to bring Christmas to his home causes confusion. That's a mild way of putting it. But at any rate, what's up?
I feel like they're missing a lot of details there.
For sure.
Well, yeah, the one sentence will, but you know. But anyway, Dustin, we'll let you kick it off. Why don't we? About what are your first impressions on this one?
So I saw this around when it was new, actually. We didn't get to see it in a theater, but my dad liked buying VHS tapes. And for whatever reason, I think we bought this brand new from the store. So we must have had some confidence in this as a kid's movie. Because I'm trying to remember the circumstances under which we picked it up, but I just can't. Because I was really little. Because I remember having like the big black clamshell that it came in. And anyway, I had it somewhere. I think we sold our house in Rockford, but my elderly parents did it in such haste that we didn't move our old stuff out. So I think whoever bought it, frankly, just stole everything we had left in the house. So the tape is gone.
They at least turn on your sinks and plug them. You know what I'm saying?
But anyway, like I was saying, so I first saw this. I can't even remember the first time I saw this because I was so young. But it really blew me away. Like it did to pretty much everybody who saw it. I mean, I've only met one person who was like, I saw it and I really didn't like it. Like I fell asleep, and that guy turned out to be an actual like child abusing criminal. So
I thought you were gonna say asshole, but that makes sense.
That too.
Very true.
So, you know, if you don't like this movie, you're a bad person, I guess is what I'm just trying to say. But I'm kidding. But no, I've had nothing but positive experiences with this movie. And I think the one thing I'm going to say kind of, I guess in the negative about Nightmare Before Christmas is that it's a little bit overexposed at this point because it is everywhere. You cannot escape it. Like you will see Nightmare Before Christmas merchandise wherever you go. Like Walgreens, the mall.
Yeah.
You can't
I was
enter an American mall.
For the spread of that. We'll get to it.
Yeah, but I mean that kind of ties into my first impression too, because it's like I love this movie when I was little. I used to watch it like multiple times. Because it's the stop motion is just mesmerizing, especially if you're younger and you don't know how they did it. It's just like a window into a whole other world. And then as you're older, you have an appreciation for it, and you know Jack becomes more relatable. It's like, yeah, I do feel like I should be doing something else. Like, but yeah, I just have so many positive things to say. So this is a great movie, and it's a genuine classic. It just has a little bit too much of an overboard approach with its merchandising. And it's a great musical, too. So a lot of those songs are very memorable. And speaking of merchandising, they have merchandised a lot of. There was a tie-in album released a while ago called Nightmare Revisited by a bunch of bands, and I actually got reinterested in it after hearing some of my favorite bands do covers in that album. Like Korn did "Kidnapping" with
Korn,
Santa
yeah.
Claus, and that's one
The
of my
Korn
favorite
one
Korn
is
songs.
Fucking brutal, dude. It's so good.
Anyway, who's next?
All right. Well, you're looking at my screen here. I think I'm going to go counterclockwise because why not? Because I believe, Kroll, I think this was your selection. And I appreciate you let me take over because this was one that I was interested in doing. But let's hear your first impressions on this.
Yeah, it's no problem letting you do it. Yeah, I saw this when it first came out, not in the theaters either. I, of course, was a lot older. I wasn't a little kid, but I did really enjoy it. Halloween has always been my favorite holiday, so it was really nice to mix Halloween with Christmas, and I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed all the animation. The songs are great. It's just a fun movie, and yeah, they do have merchandise everywhere. My ex girlfriend, this is her favorite movie, and I bought her a Monopoly, maybe a full Christmas Monopoly. So it's definitely everywhere. You're right there. Yeah, I enjoy this movie. It's definitely a great Christmas movie. It's kind of a Halloween movie too. You get 2 for 1. Great movie. Well, that was, and I've seen this movie quite a few times as well through the years.
I think an ex-girlfriend of yours was decently into this, if I remember right.
What'd you say?
Willow, wasn't she like big into this? I feel like we watched it one time together through like some weird app.
Maybe. I don't know. I just know it was Sheree.
I think most of our girlfriends have been into it.
All right. So, was that all for you, Ron?
Yes.
All right. Dane, how about you? What are your impressions of this? Is it a first time watch?
Nope. I saw this movie for the first time in college because there were certain movies that didn't really get on my radar very much because of, the family and, what they would or wouldn't approve of, that kind of stuff. Tim Burton movies were ones that I didn't see until, that I didn't see until later. But then once I did see those films of Tim Burton's, then I really got into them. And this is, again, not technically a Tim Burton film, at least not in terms of his directorial output, even though it's called Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas because he came up with the story and producer and all that stuff. It's got his fingerprints all over it, even though Harry Selick directed it. Or Harry or Henry, I can never remember. But anyway, Henry, yeah. Anyway, saw it in college. Really dug it. It's probably one of the most creative animated films ever. One of the most unique holiday movies, not just Christmas, not just Halloween. You can see some of the inspiration from The Grinch, which I know that Tim Burton was inspired by. It's probably Danny Elfman's magnum opus in terms of music, even more so than Batman, even more so than Edward Scissorhands.
Even more so than
would beg to differ.
Even more so than Oingo Boingo almost, because he's gonna be remembered for this movie forever.
Oingo Boingo is legit.
What were you saying, Mo? Who would beg to differ?
I mean, I love Oingo Boingo.
Yeah, well,
but
I mean, in terms
this
of
is almost better.
Right. Agreed.
Well, it combines. It actually kind of bridges the two, doesn't it? Because it's lyrical, and he gets to sing, but then also it's orchestral. Because like you don't get that with Batman or anything, or Beetlejuice or Edward Scissorhands, anything like that. But you do get the lyricism. But this really kind of is his magnum opus, I think, musically. stop motion, it's incredible. Kind of took the art form to new heights that haven't really even been surpassed, I don't think, except for possibly Leica. But even they standing on the shoulder of giants, and this movie's definitely a giant when it comes to animation. Yeah, I mean,
It was
there's
the last
really
blast for sure.
little
It
bit,
was.
yeah. I mean, there's really not much bad to say about it. I mean, anything, again, quote unquote bad, that one could say about it is perhaps overexposure, perhaps just depending on if it appeals to your kids specifically. I know that I liked horror movies growing up, and I watched like the Universal monster films and stuff. So I probably would have dug this fine if I'd seen it. But as it is, I think it. I don't know. I think it's wonderful. I mean, there's really not a whole lot bad to say, and not a lot else unique that I can really bring to it, other than it's great. Watch it, and watch it twice a year. Watch it Halloween. Watch it around Christmas.
Yes.
Yes, it's a dual use movie, a dual use holiday movie. Not quite as what was it, a 5-time threat from Holiday Inn, but so
Yeah. Okay. So the only I guess not negative, more like what about this? Because I know that there were talks of a sequel, which I don't want them to do because it's like, don't do it. Just let it be what it is. But my point is like it
How
would
could
have
you
been nice.
possibly follow it up
Ti-
too?
I
Hey,
know,
Tim
but
Burton.
the only thing I was thinking is like I would have loved to have seen what Easter looked like, Thanksgiving looked like, all these other worlds and stuff. That's about it.
we,
Though.
we,
Yes.
we do get a taste of Easter with a great bunny. But anyway, we'll go ahead and move along a little bit here. Mo, I'm sure
Up to
this
it.
was not your first viewing. What is your experience with this movie?
Well, the first time that I remember like hearing about this movie, I feel like it was like watching a tape for something else that we had rented, and there was a preview for it on there. And then I vividly remember like this was probably the first movie that I remember my parents reserving the rental for at the video store. You guys remember that? Reserving the rentals? There'd be like that monthly release like
Yeah.
board
you
at
Yeah.
the store, and you would go in there and your parents would
Oh,
look it
yeah.
over, and then you'd look it over, and usually if you were lucky, they'd allow you to reserve one too. The very next one that I vividly remember was my parents reserving Tremors 2 for us.
I
But
remember reserving. Yeah.
this one was like the first one that I remember my parents had reserved it, and I'd seen the trailer on like a different tape or something like that. Or maybe one of the times we went to the theater back then, Jurassic Park, something like that. I don't fucking know. Whatever it was, like the current big movie at the time. And I was hyped for it. Like I was fucking hyped for Nightmare Before Christmas, and then we watched it, and it lived up to every goddamn bit of that, It's the perfect sort of holiday musical, It's perfect for Christmas. It's perfect for Halloween. The stop motion just gave me a nerd boner even at that age because I'd seen like fucking Clash of the Titans and stuff or Gumby. So I was like, yes, this is me right here, like this is my shit. And it was always a movie that I held near and dear to my heart. But I was never one of those fucking like Hot Topic Nightmare Before Christmas kids. And then I grew up, and obviously I hit dating age. And unfortunately, right when I was like hitting the initial stages of dating age, and like really it continued throughout, my high school dating career, there was always like that Hot Topic chicks that really liked Nightmare Before Christmas. And for some reason, they were into dudes that listened to Creator and fucking Sepultura and shit. So, I fell on their radar. They fell on mine because it was like, look,
Problem
hot
with
goth
that.
chick. Yeah, there's no problem with it. It's just the amount of times you will have to watch Nightmare Before Christmas while banging those chicks is
While doing it?
exorbitant, bro.
That's how you know the
You know?
date's going well.
Dude, unfortunately,
It's
this
like
is one of those
astrology.
ones where I gotta say, yes, it has happened like that.
It's like,
David.
oh, she's talking about astrology. I know where this is going.
I've
It's a
seen
good
it a
sign.
lot of times, and you know what? Even through all of that, even through growing into an adult without any of that in my life, and then settling into where we're at now, this movie has not lost any of its luster. It's still fucking magnificent, you know. So
It's such a strong film, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
never-
testament to its longevity, is the fact that even though all that shit like couldn't make me tired of this, it's still fucking rules.
Right.
There
All
are certain
right.
there are certain movies you don't expect for them to go in that direction, but then all of a sudden things get real, and you're like, oh, okay, so I guess this is one of those movies.
Yeah, all of a sudden you're watching Oogie Boogie sing his song as like this random emo chick you decided to come home with one night is freaking out, and like the dad of her kid is there, and he's looking at you like, "Where's my yoo-hoo?" And I don't know. I have nothing to do with this, dude. Ooga Booga fucking rocks, though.
What?
Okay.
Bram Stoker's Dracula was that way for me. I was, things got kind of hot and heavy in certain
All right.
ways.
Story for another
Okay.
time.
All right.
Continue,
That's a
Jacob.
story. Yeah, that's a story of another time.
I know. The last movie I had that happen was Tusk, actually.
All right. So, Dave, is this your first go around with this movie?
No, it's definitely not. I did not see this movie in the theater, but I remember all the buzz about it, and it was more my sister's favorite movie, and it was something that of a kind of a sleeper that, more or less ended up being a slight favorite of mine for a time. And the thing is, I didn't even realize that Danny Elfman was the voice of Jack Skellington.
So
up
what
until,
Dave's saying is
recently.
he was
Wait,
one
what?
of those Hot Topic girls.
See,
I
I
love you,
knew
Dave.
Oingo Boingo. I really got into Dead Man's Party. And see, for me, Danny Elfman's magnum
Dead Man's Party
opus
fucking
was
rules.
Forbidden Zone.
Great.
But when I go into this movie, I keep on thinking about the artwork of Edward Corey. And Edward Corey was a phenomenal artist of like the interesting macabre stuff. And if you've ever seen any of the Edward Corey paintings or drawings or etchings, I can see how some of that could have been taken and been influenced in this film. See, I was into a children's author called John Bellairs back in the day, and Edward Corey's drawings were used in those books. You'll know John Bellairs' work in The House with a Clock in Its Walls, which is eventually what that movie became. But I like the idea that there is a king in a Halloween town, and there's all these vampires, and there's a Frankenstein-esque like creature. There's a and I always loved the little dog Zero. It was always a favorite character of mine since I saw this movie, and I've loved the work that went into this film. The stop motion animation was a big thing in this movie, and I think
And
that
it's
it
fucking
excelled
phenomenal.
in it.
Yeah.
All right. Did you have anything else, Dave?
At the end of the day, this was a film that was in my rotation, and I enjoy it every time I see it. So,
Good deal. All right. How about you, Tammy? What are your, is this first time for you? And what are your overall thoughts on the movie?
You're muted, Tammy.
Tammy?
Tamara. Let's hear it like the Gamera song. Tamara. Oh, well, if we all started doing
Tammy,
it,
you're
that
on
would
mute.
Cool.
Okay.
There we go.
Actually, it's Tamara, not Tamara.
Hey.
Well, he
But
tried.
anyways, this wasn't my first time. In fact, my first time was like when it came out when I was back in my 20s. My boyfriend at the time loved animation like that. He was really big into Wallace and Gromit, and then this came out, so he was.
If your boyfriend at the moment doesn't, you should rethink that decision. What's going on, Dave? What do you don't like Wallace and Gromit? That's what we're hearing right now for the first time.
It's a little dry.
I like chicken. I don't. I like chicken ramen. I like chicken ramen. I like chicken ramen. Wallace and Gromit.
But he liked that stuff too, and I never was into it that much. But the movie's kind of like growing on me because since Dave and I've been together, and I know his sister really loves this movie, I've watched it more now. So now I do. I've been getting into it a lot more than I used to. When I first watched it, I really did not get into it because I didn't like that stop animation like that. It just didn't. It didn't do anything for me. But now I
God will judge you later.
Hey, I said I like it now. So, but yeah. So when we rewatched it last night, it was definitely been getting into it more. And like Dave said, he didn't know Danny Elfman. It was me that found out that it was Danny Elfman was the one singing and that he was behind the music. So I'm the one that found that out.
Which makes the movie a hell of a lot better for me because I particularly enjoy Oingo Boingo, and I think Danny Elfman is one of the best musicians on this earth.
Weirdly, he seems kind of embarrassed by the Oingo Boingo stuff, and it's like, what the fuck, dude?
It's like, why would he be? That's very odd.
Yeah, it's super rocking, dude. Like Dead Man's Party has already been mentioned at least once tonight, and it deserves to be mentioned again. It's one
of the best 80s albums, I would say.
Exactly, outside of Oingo Boingo.
We found out it was Danny Elfman because one of the songs reminded me of another band, Voltaire.
Oh, Voltaire.
Voltaire. He does a song, "I Am Evil," and in one of
the cars in there too. For sure.
One of the songs that he was doing in the second song or whatever in the movie, it kept reminding me of that song, and even the way he sang it reminded me of it. And I'm like, who is doing this? So I looked it all up and found it all up, and I'm like, hey, it's Danny Elfman. And David's like, really?
Very good.
So I'm done.
Really hoping this new Nightmare Before Christmas tour that they're doing will spark an Oingo Boingo tour. We can hope.
Right. Are they touring with these performances? I know they had a recent one that was quite interesting, but
they need to.
Because I think I posted that with the group, actually. They did a performance in October where, for whatever reason, Catherine O'Hara couldn't make it, but they had her character of Sally was performed by Billie Eilish, and her character of Shock was performed by Weird Al Yankovic. But otherwise, they had pretty much all the original cast come back.
Paul Rubin was there too.
Paul Rubin was there. Danny Elfman, Ken Page as Oogie Boogie. So yeah, I'd love to catch that show. It'd be pretty cool.
It'd be fucking immense.
Although it would be kind of nice if, it is kind of a shame O'Hara couldn't be there, but the duo of Eilish and Yankovic still sounds intriguing. But anyway, how about you, Brittany? I'm sure it's probably not a first viewing. What is your first impressions with this?
No, it's not a first viewing. I went to the theaters when it first came out with a friend that we were both into animation. I do like to jokingly call this movie the nightmare of the animation studio. Being an animator or having experience being an animator, my God, you have an entire day that you may have to set up 2 shots at best for a movie like this, and you've got
it's arduous
stuff. And I mean, the amount of detail, it's all sort of new techniques that they've added, because Henry Housen was probably the most prominent before that with his stop motion work.
Everybody forgets David Allen because the full moon thing. David Allen was amazing, but it was all done for full moon, so you didn't see it till like the 90s, you know.
If it makes you feel any better, I have no idea who either of them is.
Dude, you gotta watch that Harryhausen documentary.
Well, let's let Brittany continue.
Sadly, I mean, this was, I hate to say it, what caused the goth concept out there, because I mean, Tim Burton is very much responsible for the goth movement in society, and it would be mostly this movie, particularly, that got people into that gothic revival.
Yep. Lead singer of Slipknot was wearing that fucking stupid Jack Skellington beanie for like 3 years. It was a thing. Hard.
But that's all I have to say for right now.
All right. I would argue Burton, yes, but I would say generally you could throw Beetlejuice and the Batman movies in as even Edward Scissorhands. They all had elements of it, but
yep, they're all guilty.
Yep. Anyway, how about you, Brandon? Your first impressions on this one?
Well, this is not my first time watching it. I saw this, oddly enough, in high school because one of the teachers had gotten a video cassette player and had shown it for our art class, which was rather cool. And the fact I saw it in high school tells me how old this thing is. But I was very impressed by it. I loved stop motion. I always thought, I mean, to me, I was all into the claymation, which was one of the chief things, and those Rankin Bass specials, of course, which this is the time of year for those, to be sure. So I just really enjoyed that sort of style. So I was impressed by it. I'm always impressed by the amount of work that goes into those things. And I was, in general, I felt like it was oversaturated to the point where I didn't feel like watching it. It's one of those things you can get too much of a good thing. But coming back to it after a couple of years on hiatus from it, it's a very enjoyable film to watch. I still get a lot out of it. I don't think I love it as much as I did when I first watched it back in the day, but I still enjoy it.
All right. And Roger, is this your first go around with this one? And if not, or either way, what are your first impressions?
Well, oddly enough, this is not my first time watching The Nightmare Before Christmas. I remember not wanting to watch it when it first came out. It was in '92. I was in the military at the time. I said, "Oh man, a stop motion kind of thing." It's like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, or claymation like Davy and Goliath. I was never a fan of that type of show, but because of Batman, I said, "Well, it does say Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas." I didn't realize at the time that it was not directed by Tim Burton, so I kind of popped it in there after renting it and said, "Oh, it's not too bad of a show." Fast forward, quite a few years later. Of course, I watched it. This is like the second time I've watched it. It's just not. It's a show that's all right. I call it my favorite Christmas show because, in general, I just don't like Christmas shows. But I do have a certain amount of entertainment out of it. I kind of grew around Tim Burton for a while, so I did like this revisit.
Oh, very good. So we didn't have any newbies in this crowd, I'm afraid, but that's kind of hard. I think Dustin is right. There was a lot of exposure with this film, and images of Jack and Sally in particular, but just generally the landscape, those curled hillsides and stuff. It's become fairly iconic, I think, in the pop culture. Not just the goth landscape, but certainly a big part of that. But I honestly, I have no idea what my first encounter with this movie was. I really don't. I have no idea. I don't think we saw it right away. I think it was a couple years later. I believe we did get one of those big clamshells, but I could be remembering that wrong because this was not exactly the kind of movie we rushed to go see at that time. But we were watching the Batman. We saw Batman Returns and initially didn't like it because it was so dark. But we had seen Edward Scissorhands. I was enjoying the Beetlejuice cartoon at that. I think at that time was probably when that was on air. So I was pretty familiar with Tim Burton as a figure. Less so with Danny Elfman, but at the time I wasn't really. I was just starting to learn composers, and we knew the Batman score, but we weren't allowed to watch The Simpsons, so I didn't have that one locked in memory yet. So, and I'll be honest, I don't even think I'd ever heard of Oingo Boingo until college. And as it is, I'm not familiar with their music. I need to rectify that, I'm sure. But
Yes.
I've definitely become a big fan of Elfman since then as a musician. A lot of the people involved with this, I was surprised after probably 3 or 4 viewings. I learned that Chris Sarandon was the voice of Jack, the speaking voice. For whatever reason, it took me forever to remember that Danny Elfman was his singing voice, and I kept thinking, oh, Chris Sarandon's a good singer. But of course, I always knew him from Princess Bride, so it's like, it's nice seeing Humperdinck in a pleasant role, And again, Catherine O'Hara didn't really lock her in place as part of the cast, and just like with Home Alone, I grew up with her not even realizing it until... It wasn't until I got into the Christopher Guest movies that I really knew who Catherine O'Hara was. And so it's like, I kind of had sort of a backwards way of getting everyone involved. Henry Selick, I didn't remember the name until Coraline came out, so it's like, everyone involved, it took me a while to really lock them into places. They were in this movie and they were part of this movie, and but the movie, I always liked it. I always thought it had great music. I always thought it had a nice little story, but I could not remotely say how many times I had seen it over the years. It was like a now and then thing. I really don't. And yes, Dave, I looked up Mr. Gory, and yes, I bet those pictures probably were an influence based on what I heard Selick say in the bonus features I watched. I'll bet he was an influence. But I've had ups and downs with the film. Like, I think the last time I watched it before this was the main reason I didn't put it forward is I'd already watched my copy. But when I watched my copy, I felt a bit kind of like I did when I mentioned when we did Frankenstein. I talked about how I felt a little slighted, I guess you could say, a little cheated. It's just such a short movie that if you catch it at the wrong time, you're left going, well, there wasn't much to that. But if you catch it at the right moment, you're glad it's short because it's like, oh, great, there's a whole story and just a short, but the film really is built around the music. It's built around the songs. There's relatively little the dialogue that's completely music free. And
it's definitely more of a musical.
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely a musical.
I was gonna say, like, so this, like you mentioned, the short length, and part of that is because this is true. there is more money spent per frame of film in animation of any sort, stop motion, 2D, 3D, whatever. More money spent per frame of film in animation than there is in live action, so they kind of have to be short to not be,
See, I just refuse to believe that with modern CGI technology.
That doesn't really apply here. This was old school stop motion.
Yeah,
old school. I can understand why it costs that much, but
I would still say it's probably more true for CGI than you think it is, for the simple reason that modern
maybe by a very slight margin. I don't think it's in the billions.
What I'm saying though, I'm trying to get to the point here. Because I think it's probably more true than you think it is, just given how many layers there are to modern CGI films. Point being, this film, because of that, it is short and sweet. It does get to its point be quick, to the point where it does feel like a Christmas special that just has a longer length than most Christmas specials do. But again, that's par for the course, because the inspirations were like How the Grinch Stole Christmas and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, just through the Tim Burton lens. So that's point one. Point two, because it's mostly music and lyrics. There are some bits of dialogue, but it's not like a totally sung through musical like Les Miserables or anything like that, where there are no recitatives or anything. It's almost there, but not quite. But you wouldn't have to cut all that much to, if you were to do it completely sung through, you could probably get there. There's just, there's only a few bits of dialogue that you really don't even need all that much, because the visuals tell the story. But that's pretty cool that it does have something of a Les Mis feel to it in terms of being totally sung through, almost.
Well, besides the cost, being short, kids don't have that big of a attention span, and if you want a child to watch this, you don't want it to last hours on end.
Exactly.
So besides the cost, the shortness is probably also directed at, you want the children to watch it.
And there's also a couple of other, the sheer work involved. Like, I think a couple people talked on this. I don't know how many people watched or looked into the bonus features, but one of the ones I watched, they really went into depth in the process of stop motion, and it's fascinating. But it really, you do get an appreciation for the craft and the art. And I want to say, I could be remembering this wrong, I think they said that they filmed this at 24 frames per second, I think, which basically meant that every second of film, they had 24 different poses for whichever puppets were being involved in that scene. And that's a lot of work. So having a shorter film makes perfect sense under that setup. And then also it's based on a poem. That's one thing that I had never really realized. This is Tim Burton's story. It may have been directed by Henry Selick, but it is Burton's story. And it's based on a poem he wrote during his early years as a Disney animator. And the poem is about 3 pages long. And that basically gives the plot of the film. If they had not added a whole bunch of characters, that would have been an even shorter film. But it's very interesting. And again, if whoever did not, I would very much recommend the version I have has Christopher Lee reading the poem. And Christopher Lee just has the perfect voice for anything Tim Burton related. So that was pretty fun. It has sort of a Susian vibe to it, but
it sounds amazing.
A little darker. But at any rate, so this was what kind of triggered my renewed interest in doing this. I've thought for a while we could do this with this group. Out of nowhere this summer, I got seized with an idea that I do eventually want to do, hopefully on my channel with Brandon. Hopefully we can do this eventually, but maybe involve some of the other folks. I like to look at the music of the Disney animated catalog, and it really got back into my brain, the Nightmare Before Christmas stuff. This Is Halloween has to be one of the catchiest songs in the entire Disney canon. It is so freaking catchy. And What's This is not far behind. And
even though we now know he's a creep,
I was actually
did a great version of that.
I was actually singing Halloween Town for like, all night. I watched this movie again last night, and I was singing it all night long. Watching different stuff, and I was still singing Halloween Town.
Yeah. So and I have to agree, Dustin. I have never been a big fan of Marilyn Manson, and less so now, knowing what we've heard recently. But his cover of the song
for years. So
but
he's pretty much just disgusting. But
I have to kind of call bullshit on that just a little bit for the simple reason that he hasn't hidden a lot of his.
I've been a Manson fan since like 5th grade, bro, and he was always telling us that he was a piece of shit. It's just now confirmed, But that aside, I can understand not celebrating the stuff anymore.
Yeah.
I never
huge difference between good artist and good person,
Right. My point being that again, I've never really cared for the guy, regardless. But when I heard that,
there's definitely a difference between liking the music for what it means to you at the time, and not for the things that they're eventually known for.
Right. So at any rate, the and also another thing that coming to it from an older perspective, one of my favorite scenes in the movie has always been the scene with Oogie Boogie, and I think he has one of the great villain songs. But there are people who have interpreted that as being kind of an let's say a tone deaf sequence, but Ken Page had no problem with it, so whatever. And that's how the filmmaker saw it. They were like, he has no problem doing this, so whatever. But
how?
It plays homage to some old cartoons that maybe haven't aged so well. Involving Cab Calloway and whatever, and there have been people who have accused it of feeling racially awkward. But again, Ken Page is black, and he's like, I got no problem with it.
Dude, because I'm the type of person that even knowing all the shit that we know nowadays, I would still make something that would feel racially awkward like that, because I would expect it to make people feel racially awkward. We're making fucking scary movies and exploitation films over here. We're not making movies to make you fucking feel good. So when I find out about stuff like that,
Disney would have been thinking that they were, theoretically, we all know what goes on behind the scenes. But anyway,
point being, not every scene is meant to make you
it just
feel
always
good.
Seems like
unless it's done in bad taste.
Every time there's some, it seems like every time there's something that ends up being enjoyable, someone has to point out something racist about it.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with pointing out like that. Those are valid criticisms, bro. The point is when they vilify doing any of that. That's my problem.
It's clearly
like I might still do something like that, but it would be for the purpose of doing that because I know it's going to make. All you're giving people that do certain types of movies is more ammunition to do that type of stuff.
I picked up on the Oogie Boogie thing too, but it's more so that it's kind of in an older. It's in an older milieu, shall we say? It's nowhere near as egregious as like Censored 11 stuff, but it's definitely in an older, old-timey showbiz milieu that perhaps wasn't as great to African Americans as it is now.
Well, don't they make the song about basically fucking robbing Santa Claus? So they're talking about like just taking everything from the main symbol of consumerism, you know.
Yeah, you could say that. The but I still think it's a rocking song. I've always enjoyed
It's
it.
amazing.
And Ken Page does such a great job with the vocals there. It just really does. And the vocals generally, I mean, I need to hear Oingo Boingo because Danny Elfman can sing. I mean, he really can. So this is my takeaway this time around. And like I said, I actually watched the commentary track with Elfman, Burton, and Selleck, and that was pretty informative and interesting. And that featurette on the stop motion was pretty awesome. So I recommend those if anyone hasn't done that yet. But anyway, and incidentally, I don't know. This seems like the kind of film where this is worth discussing. I, of course, grew up, I think, watching it on VHS. I had it on DVD for a while, and now I have it on Blu-ray. Has anyone themselves felt that they've seen a particular? I feel like it looks even better now than it ever has. But
it does for sure.
But
I
wonder if anyone's
This
VHS
is
as well.
this is a
it's
movie
definitely
that lends
improved.
itself really well. This is a movie that lends itself really, really well to high definition, just because you
really
get to see the textures and you get to see like the fact that this really is claymation. They really did actually mold all this stuff, and it has a physicality to it that can't really be replicated. Like the closest I've seen to that level of physical concrete matter was like in the Lego movie. Even that, it was actually a CGI movie, but they scanned in all those Lego pieces, and that's how they were able to get that texture.
Skips right
and the
over
lighting
small
correct.
soldiers like it doesn't exist. It hurts me.
I'm still kind of serious
I
why
get it.
that movie would be considered to be racist or racial or something like that.
Was he just kind of singing jazz or something? Or I don't
really
really understand personally.
Or it's because people are making up stuff.
I think it was, again, because it was hearkening back to an era that was not racially sensitive. I think that was what it was.
Every fucking era, you know.
But yeah,
that's why I said it's in an older milieu. It's not really. It's nowhere near as overt as other things. It's clearly.
And the film very definitely.
That end of it is how like worms come out of him when his stitches get ripped. That's cool.
Right. Well, actually, that was kind of a fun thing that I had never really thought about for some reason. And then today I just saw it written that it was sort of like, it's sort of like the don't let the bed bugs bite, and I'm like, bugs. I got it. I never really thought about that. But
I love Oogie Boogie, and I'm not going to apologize for that now.
And I like how they filmed those scenes with the black light. It just made it so very different from the rest of it.
Gross.
It just gave it that
weird
eeriness, But
bowling alley gross.
Well, just real quick, I'll just make a well, let's go ahead and just launch into the actual plot, such as it is. And you can use the songs as the skeleton of the film. So I'm kind of going to do that. I think you got a very brief opening, which is narrated by Ed Ivory, who plays Santa Claus, but apparently on the soundtrack it was Patrick Stewart. They were originally going to have Vincent Price, but he was too ill and ended up dying, I think, right around the time the movie came out. But that would have been a fun. What's that? But so then of course, okay. But then, of course, you go into the "This is Halloween," dun 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 dun, dun and it'll be stuck in your head for the next month. But anyway, it's a really good intro to all the characters. You get a lot of characters. They each get to do like a line or two, or and it's a fun opener. They get like I said, basically a full intro to Halloween Town, culminating with your introduction to Jack. You see Sally. You get a couple bars from the mayor. You get a very quick oogie boogie thing, the shadow on the moon, which they've later confirmed was indeed him. All the different, you get the vampires, the quote underseas woman, like the creature from the lagoon, who's actually voiced by Carmen Twilly, who did Circle of Life. You've got the intros to a lot of the characters there. What do y'all think about this opening? Any particular impressions or anything people want to throw out?
Yeah, it kind of looks like a Disney movie, except it was all claymation, except it was all stop motion. That's my first impression of it.
Well, it's a pretty damn good opening, I have to say, with arguably the best song. I say arguably because, it's there's a couple that you can pick from as far as best song. There's this one, What's This? Sally's song is amazing. This was probably all the songs in any musical, the opening song has to really grab you. That's what it's got to do. It's got to set up the world. It's got to establish the flow of life of characters, all that stuff. This one definitely does that, but it also has the added bonus of like having all kinds of freaky ass shit coming at you all at once. And that's really nice. It does it really well. Not to mention the fact that the bats that we see with the shadow of the moon at night, your dreams of the brim fight, that whole thing, the bats actually have strings attached to them, which is really cool. It's just nice to see those little details there. And also like if a character needs to be gooey, like the creature from the Black Lagoon, or like there's other like gooey creatures, if they need to be gooey, then they can be, or if they need to be bone dry, quite literally, then they can be. That's why watching it in high definition, you see all the textures, you see all the characterizations and all that stuff, all those little things that make all the difference. Just as a song, it establishes flow of life, it establishes the tone, it does everything you want an opening song to do. It's just awesome. And as we established before, the Marilyn Manson cover, really, really awesome. Particularly great cover, but even the normal version, amazing as well.
Not to mention that I'm sure Brandon would vehemently disagree with this, but there are so many AMVs out there using either version to go with the Thriller Bark arc from One Piece, and every time I see those, that just cracks me up.
Well, I was gonna say that I'm sure someone's already done this. This cannot be a new idea, but like you could easily take the songs from them, match it up to footage from like Batman Returns, and in many ways, Batman Returns feels like something of a thematic precursor to this, just because it's weird freaky creatures that are all in they're all in a snowy world, and they're all doing freaky things juxtaposed with Christmas and all that stuff. And it's like, yeah, you could totally match these songs up to footage from Batman Returns, and it would actually match up pretty well, especially like when the clowns attack in the Red Triangle Circus King, when they attack in Batman Returns. It's like you could totally put This Is Halloween to that. That could work.
I'm seeing 3 different not AMVs in this case, but you could take Catwoman, Penguin, or Max Shrek and do a What's This mashup. That'd be pretty hilarious. But one thing I do want to say on a slightly more serious note, this is the idea of a kick-ass opener is a classic in musicals. And they actually, in the interviews they were talking about, Elfman and Burton and Selleck were actually pretty well in agreement that this was, to them, almost an operatic score, because of the way it would kind of bleed in and out of the music, and not necessarily everyone stops and starts singing, which is more the typical Disney musical model. And then, of course, you get the openers like, Circle of Life for Lion King, which isn't even people performing in the film. It's just a kick-ass opener. But the closest equivalent I can think of in Disney and I wonder if they intentionally called back, was just a couple years before this, which was the Belle in Beauty and the Beast, where where she's going through the village and everyone's greeting everyone, and you get the introduction to the major characters.
Like always, that
but
whole thing.
It's a great way to introduce the characters, and I do think that this was a fun way to do that. And then of course you get Jack just kind of wandering off. They've got this big triumphant Halloween was so great and all this stuff, and this time around there was this prize goes to the vampires for most blood drained in an evening, and I'm sitting there thinking, who else would actually compete?
I imagine that there's probably plenty of people in that town, even if it's not in their job description. They could probably compete for that. Who's actually someone who's actually a really good teacher of sorts for the structure of musicals. There's an interview that Lloyd Kaufman did with Trey Parker talking about Campbell the musical, and he was when I made my first film, it's like it has to be a musical, which is because I knew the structure of musical, which is you have your big opening number, you have the main character sing about what he or she wants, and all these different things. You have to. It just has a certain formula to it. This one had our big opening number. Then we have the "I Want" song for our main character, which is the Jack's whole thing about. Oh, somewhere deep inside of these bones.
Jack's lament. Yep.
Yeah, we have to have that, and that's a particularly good one. So it sets up who Jack is, how he's feeling, what he wants, all that stuff, and it's all sung through. So it's again, the recitative bits are very few and far between, and even if they're there, you could have probably had it all sung through if you wanted, but no, it's a particularly good "I Want" song.
And I like how I was reading an article or a description or whatever where they were talking about, I can't remember offhand the name of the other trope, but it's like, it's not just the "I Want" song. There's also the "I Am" or something like that, which is a more common, one thing that this particular person was pointing out was that the "I Want" song is usually associated with Disney princesses. So in a way, Jack gets to be a Disney princess for a bit.
Well, it's usually associated with Disney princesses because, for the most part, they tend to be the protagonists of those types of movies, but not always, because, again, Aladdin has that, Quasimodo has that, Hercules has that.
Yeah. Aladdin is kind of an odd exception to that, and I guess you could say "One Jump Ahead" is kind of his "I Want" song.
His is Riff Raff Street Rat. The guys.
The "One Jump Ahead."
Quasimodo has that with "Out There." Hercules has that. So the males can have that too. It just so happens that females tend to be the leads of those, but Jack has his own "I Want" song. But yes, whoever your protagonist is, they have to have that. And then, there's usually the love interest has to have a song, which Sally does also. Hers is interesting because it is the love interest song, but it's also kind of a foreboding song at the same time. So it accomplishes two things at once.
Right. Now, of course, hers is much later. Well, her main song is much later, but so you have some introduction to Sally, though. One of the earlier kind of dialogue heavy ones is where you're introduced to her. She's got there's the Dr. Finkelstein, who is her creator, that she keeps poisoning with nightshade and trying to get away. And
I would like to get some perspective, maybe from Brittany on some of these aspects of Sally, or maybe Tammy. What did y'all think about the character of Sally?
I kind of felt that she was, just your token female for a little bit. For the longest time, I see a little bit more developed as I more and more watched it. But I mean, a lot of it is in lore that I see that people have gone deeper into the story of the movie to try and get it in there. I mean, I do kind of feel like almost the love story was tacked on, and if you've read the poem, it was because Sally.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I get it that it does have some romantic scenes with her, but I mean, at the same time, I don't think the movie would be different without her. To be honest.
Yeah, sure. Her
She's
whole
kind of an
reason
important
for
character.
well, but her whole reason for being more or less is to love Jack for reasons, and it's like, and I can kind of understand a little bit in the sense that she's a new creation. She's kind of a shut-in, so her emotions are a little bit more heightened and that kind of stuff. But I agree that it's kind of a product of the time that like the girl is in love with the male lead just for reasons, rather than for
She plays the part of the individual who warns the hero about the danger. There's always got to be a warning to others about the danger.
Cassandra, I think it is the Cassandra role.
And that to me does have a part. It could have been played by one of the other characters, but I think she does well enough with it. And the characters are all iconic at this point. And I have the same feeling about another character, but I will put that later.
Well,
I'll go ahead and
she is the one person who does foresee that this thing is not going to end well, so that definitely says something for her, and then of course gets
I have a bad feeling about this.
Song. Yeah, it gets heightened with Sally's song because it's like I sense there's something in the wind, that whole thing.
It can never end well.
Extra special shout out to the Amy Lee version of that song.
Right. So anyway, Tammy, your thoughts on that? Dave set you up for that. I'll give you a chance to.
Well, I liked her, like you guys were saying. She's the one that's trying to warn him. But you can see that she really does care about him and love him. She just isn't expressing it. So she's trying to do everything else, like protect him and warn him, because I think she doesn't know how to tell him how she really feels about him. So she's just gonna go and make sure he's okay. Is what I get.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and say, Brittany, I do agree with your assessment that it kind of felt like the love story was tacked on. And it's probably, that might have been something I picked up on the last time I saw it, which might have been why I felt a little underwhelmed when I saw it, because the love story does feel a little slight. It does feel a little tacked on. It does feel like she likes him for reasons, although there is a little bit more to it, I think, than that. Because I think there is a kinship there, because they are different from everyone else in Halloween Town. Like
the thing
what's up?
I wanted to say this. The thing about Jack is that he is the king of this Halloween Town, and it seems like everyone caters to him and what he does for the town. Like when he tells the mayor we need a town meeting, he gets immediately on the horn and is like, town meeting.
Everybody in Halloween Town is defers to Jack.
Right.
Sally's the only one who just kind of treats him like you'd treat like a peer,
Right.
Like
which is one of the
he is like the big cheese, he's the best they got, and it's always interesting whenever you set up. So your characters in your stories, they tend to fall into one of two categories. They either are like Aladdin, where they start off at the bottom, nobody likes them, they're struggling to get by, and so then it's like a rise and fall, or just a rise story, whatever it is. Or you have in this case where someone's on top of the world and then they kind of get brought down a peg. And in
Right.
this case, he gets brought down a peg, sort of, but it's more of his own doing, and it's more about kind of rekindling his passion for what he can already do well, as opposed
Right.
to I think what happens is it's obviously able to be undone, and it's not overly severe, and it's not even so much about like teaching him a lesson, but it just kind of gives him his passion back for what he already could do well. It's more about like knowing your limits, as opposed to like you know it's more, it's not so much about like he's not even arrogant or whatever, he's sort of disenchanted, so that's kind of an interesting angle.
There's a little bit of arrogance there, more so in the poem than there was in the movie.
Yeah.
But the idea that he could just step in and do someone else's holiday, that definitely does take a degree of arrogance and hubris. But
Hubris is a better word than arrogance.
We did kind of skip the importance of Jack's lament, which is to illustrate that he's bored. He has lost that spark. He's lost that interest in what he does. Like, I'm sure, I remember seeing in the discussion thread earlier, we have all experienced that when it comes to our own jobs, that we all kind of lose that thrill at some point or another. And Jack basically, he goes wandering and accidentally stumbles upon what he thinks is the answer, which we'll come back to that in just a minute. But I did want to make the point where Sally's concerned. She does have a valuable narrative point in that she is the one who is able to see Jack for what he is and what he wants to be. No one else can really do that. Except arguably Santa, who actually, the fact that he comes back and brings them all snow and whatever kind of was a nice, showing of that, sort of like a fist bump, I guess, between them at the end. But she does have a very important narrative function. It's just that they could have developed it more, and especially the romantic angle of it could have been developed a lot more than it was. Like maybe at the end, instead of I love the end, but maybe if they had a full song instead of half a song, I don't know, maybe that might have done it. Or but let's go ahead and get to that big epiphany, which of course is the song "What's This," which is where Jack comes from. One thing I do want to point out, and we'll kind of cover the artistic aspects as we go, and definitely Brittany being the animator, if you want to throw anything in on this as we go, feel free. But my understanding is that Tim Burton was adamant that they had a black and white palette for the Halloween Town, that there were a few specific things that were in color, and the vast majority of the color was orange. And so it was mostly black, white, and orange. And they supposedly based it on like German Expressionism, Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, Nosferatu, stuff like that. And then you get to Christmas Town, which is a riot of color, which is clearly influenced by the Grinch Who Stole Christmas and other specials like the Rankin Bass specials and all of those big Christmas specials. It's a completely different atmosphere visually. The music picks up. It's got a different vibe to it. And then What's This is, I would say, the most energetic song in the soundtrack.
As well it should be, because it's supposed to
Yeah.
contrast with Halloween Town and all that stuff, which
Right.
I love the limited color palette of Halloween Town, and I like that the sun, when it rises, that it has the jack-o'-lantern there. Everything does have this kind of orangey discolored grayish wash over it, even when it's in daytime. I, of course, being the huge fan of German expressionism that I am, I, of course, appreciate all of that. Always have with Tim Burton's work. But it pops, particularly when the whole world is designed to be Halloween themed. And it contrasts so nicely with Christmas Town, because that's, of course, the polar opposite. In a weird kind of way, like I didn't think about this till now. Anybody that's ever played Banjo-Kazooie, you remember the level Click Clock Wood, which was the same woods, but it was in 4 different seasons.
You're breaking up, buddy.
Summer, fall, winter, and you see how the Halloween, the woods with the doors, all the different themed lands and stuff did remind me of Click Clock Wood from Banjo-Kazooie a little bit, in terms of like doorways that lead to. Because so this is another thing. So he wanders, he sleepwalks, quite literally sleepwalks, and he ends up in this place that he's like, I've never been here before. It's someplace new. So I'm guessing all of the holiday worlds, they must have some secluded area where they're able to, go and jump to another world if they need to. And so it must be off on the edge of the map, shall we say, if we're thinking in terms of video games. But like, it's just interesting that like he's never been there before, but also that, I just like the fact that they do, the worlds do contrast so nicely. They're so different.
And I just had a thought, actually, when we were watching this. My brother commented something like, oh yeah, he just throws open a grave and walks right back into Halloween Town. I'm like, well, obviously Halloween Town would be connected to all the graveyards. I mean, I said that without even thinking about it. But then I was just now thinking about it. I was like, I wonder if this was Tim Burton's or Henry Selick, one of them, a very sly explanation without really coming out and hitting you over the head with it. Might have been their subtle explanation of how Santa's able to do the whole world in one night. Like, because, if there is that sort of ability to use these worlds as
wormholes.
Exactly. Yeah.
I was gonna say it's almost like ancient Click Clock Wood there, where it's the same place just in different seasons, and it's almost like, well, perhaps these are like wormholes to different worlds. Perhaps they're are they all interconnected anyway, and these are just shortcuts, or what are they? Doesn't really matter. It's just more interesting food for thought.
Right. And and I always thought it was like, if it's a whole world, why is it Halloween Town? I mean, it seems kind of like they got all this stuff crammed into this one little thing, but I don't know. I was thinking more like they were different planes and just different towns on each plane, but whatever.
I kind of assume that they're different realities, different worlds as well. But it really doesn't matter because we're going with fairy tale logic here.
Now, one thing that is kind of fun during the What's This number, one scene I've always loved is where he's like, and all the kids in there, dreamland, and he kind of snuggles up against the kid who's dreaming, and then he runs away. What's this? And that kid wakes up in terror, and I know it's like, maybe I shouldn't be so amused by that, but I am. But it's one of several moments during the number where you get subtle hints that Jack's very touch corrupts Christmas Town. So it's like you already know it's bound to fail. Whatever, when he comes back with all this stuff and he's like, this is what I'm going to do. Yay. You already know it's bound to fail, but like this is like the subtle foreshadowing before you even know what's being foreshadowed, It's pretty fun.
He was saying, that blah, 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 and absolutely no one's dead. And it's like,
right.
So just one's perspective does cloud one's perception of reality. you know, and that's one of my favorite bits is the town hall scene that comes right after, because they're all presented with things that are familiar to us and are fairly self-explanatory in terms of their
Right.
function for Christmas, but they all, because of their frame of reference, they all immediately go to something macabre and creepy and
Right.
horrifying and all that stuff. But it's like, isn't that just so like life? You know, you can present people with whatever you're going to present them with, and they ultimately come at it with their own biases and their own perceptions of
Right.
things. And it's like, you know, that's so like life.
Well, not to mention that here you get to see that Jack really is a pretty good politician. You know, because he's sitting there, he's trying, and they're just not getting. He takes a moment. He says they just don't understand. Well, I'll give them what they want. And then he does that
Yeah.
big production, and they called him Sandy Claus.
Well, and that,
It's like,
in a way, though, that isn't. But isn't that kind of the ultimate
What happened to
thing
Mo?
that not? I don't know.
I think we
but
lost
isn't
him a
that
while
We
ago.
lost him, but I just wanted to mention something real quick. Right before he comes back, the mayor's looking for him, and the mayor's like, "Please open up. I can't. I'm just a politician. I can't make decisions on my
I'm
own."
an elected official. I can't make
Yes,
decisions on my own.
yes, I love that
yeah.
line.
I cracked
And
up
he's-
laughing.
he's-
It's just absolute,
and he's
that little thing
literally-
right there they threw in.
Literally
He's-
two-faced, yes.
I know, it's great.
Yeah,
Well, but
yeah,
but
yeah,
even
that-
even
that-
even Jack's dilemma there, you know, he's trying to get something across to people, they're not getting it. His attempt to make it clear, you know, he's like, I guess I better give them what they want. So he has a big finish, and it does go over well, but it just kind of distorts the message even more. So he's like trying to clarify it, but it just ends up creating more problems. And it's like, well, again, isn't that just so like life? You know, it's like you're trying to keep the crowd's
Far
attention.
more
You're trying to get.
too much so for comfort.
I know, but it's like, it's so true though, you know, because like certain things will resonate with them, but it's usually a distortion of what you really meant. And you know, it's like that's actually pretty astute, you know.
Right. And then we get into the a nice little musical montage where you get a little more Sally, but you also get Jack. This kind of leads into the song Jack's Obsession, but he's doing all this stuff trying to
He's trying to logic out Christmas.
He's trying to science Christmas. Yes, he is. There must be a logical explanation.
I love the equation on the wall that's blah 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 equals Christmas, and then the book is literally the scientific method, and it's like, well, hey, he's trying, but you know, it's just like I don't even think that Will Hunting could figure this thing out.
Right. But it's one of the things is that there's much less magic. Like my understanding was that they were pretty clear that Christmas Town had all the magic and Halloween Town was more I wouldn't necessarily logical exactly, but you know, in a way more down to earth sort of.
Fewer bells and whistles, literally.
Yeah. But of course, they make the point in the commentary that Jack's Obsession and Poor Jack are counterpoints to each other. They both start off real low and slow, with Jack in a place of driftlessness and or deep depression. And they're basically songs about him convincing himself to be happy again. And by the end of it, he has a big eureka moment. And, you know, and of course, the end of this one is, this year, Christmas will be ours. And he says it with such enthusiasm that everyone cheers, even though they don't have a clue what it means. And, yeah. And then, of course, you hand into the scene where he's giving everyone their assignments, which brings in Lock, Shock, and Barrel, those three little rapscallions.
The imps.
Who, what's that?
The imps.
The imps, yes. Paul Rubens, Catherine O'Hara, and Danny Elfman playing the characters. And they get their nice little song, Kidnap the Sandy Claus, which it's a fun little, mildly twisted song.
You should hear the corn version, because it is crazy.
Kidnapping Santa Claus.
Well, not only the corn version, which is great, but also the She Wants Revenge cover is great, too.
I didn't like that one because it was just like monotone. Kidnap the Sandy Claus. I want to do it. And it's like, what?
It was more about the dance beat of it rather than anything else. I think in terms of
that
like
part was good. Okay, I'll give you that.
Yeah, capturing the emotion of it. I think Korn got that part better. It was more that the She Wants Revenge version was more danceable.
Right.
Well, it's Jonathan,
and then of course
Davis. He's perfect for this.
Those three characters were definitely the kids that you didn't want coming and trick or treating at your house.
Yeah, they were the ones that you could expect probably come bearing eggs and toilet paper and probably worse. You know. They were probably
these are kids that would have a juvie record probably.
Probably, yes.
I always loved how they when they take off the mask, it pretty much is their faces underneath.
Yes,
just slightly different colors.
I can't remember where I think it was Tim Burton who said that he had seen that somewhere and it made this huge impression on him and he wanted to do that. And like, I can't remember where he said he saw that, but it was, actually, I always thought that was kind of fun too.
I had the novelization of this when I was little, and I remember in the book, it's mentioned that that's actually kind of a big secret in Halloween Town. Like, pretty much nobody knows about that except for Oogie Boogie and Jack, that their faces are just their masks.
Huh. Okay. Well, this, of course, is also our slightly more definitive intro to Oogie, which actually, when Jack gives them their assignment, he tells them straight up, leave that no account Oogie Boogie out of this. And, of course, they're, crossing their fingers. And wouldn't dream of it, Jack. It's like, yeah, he knew better. That scene, of course, is also... Let's see, was it that scene or the next? That scene, I think, was also where we saw the assignment he had for Sally, where she kept trying to. No, it's all wrong. No, it's, and he's like, how could it be wrong? You'd be great for this. And it's like,
that's where I want to throw in there that I mean, we talked about arrogance versus hubris, and I really think that he plays it like hubris, because it's like his reasoning is like, why should they have all the fun? It should belong to anyone. And it's not so much like he's,
it doesn't come from a bad place
to screw people over. It's like he's so excited about it that he doesn't really get all the way through.
He comes from a place that is so
overly enthusiastic.
He comes from a place that is so overly depressing, that when he sees all this jolliness and all these colors and all these cheerful smiles and everything, he wants some of that. He innocently wants happiness in his depressing filled king of a life, so to me it's like he really, truthfully, honestly wanted to be Santa Claus, even if at least for a night,
Well, he's when he's the whole what's this number? Jack's like any one of us in like the world's largest DVD store, just looking around like, what's that? It's just complete joy that he's something that's new to him, totally new to him, that or just and he wants it for himself, and he doesn't really think about well, that's probably not a
consequences.
good. Yeah, exactly. Or maybe a better example. A better example might be like a kid who's never been who's like an only child and was never allowed to have pets or even be near one.
Or ever away from home.
Well, yeah, or that. Well, I was thinking
I think
more
the
like
pet example's better.
Yeah, it's like someone who's never been allowed anywhere near animals, and then they're allowed. They meet like the perfect cat or dog, depending on their personality, and they instantly fall in love. And damn the consequences, because anytime you get a pet, there's consequences. Yeah. And yeah, he's like that. He just doesn't think about it, and he thinks that because he is so excited that everyone else will get a great experience out of this, and it's just and he actually thinks he's doing Santa a favor by giving him a vacation, which and which was a little clearer in the poem. In the poem, it was more like an agreement between the two, in a sense. But here, he just straight up, the kids kidnap, the Santa Claus, which, of course, we launch into Making Christmas, where that you get a firsthand look at, what Christmas is going to look like this year. And kind of an interesting little creepy, weird song there. I think at the end of which the kids bring back, I think it was the end of this that they bring back the Easter Bunny, and then or midway through, and then they finally bring back Santa. Actually, I think it was right before the song started, they brought back the Easter Bunny. And you get that part where the guy
went to Easterland first and accidentally brought him back, and he was like, no.
And the guy with the cleaver in his head is like, Bunny, which always made me laugh for some reason. I don't know why.
It's a very goofy line delivery.
Yeah, well, it is, but he seems like a goofy fellow.
That poor Bunny was so scared.
Oh yeah. And he's like, I'm very sorry, Mr. Whatever he called him, Bunny or whatever.
Take him home first and apologize again, implying that this has happened many times.
Well, actually, no, the implication that this happens many times, well, you're right. That might be an implication it already has. But the other implication is that you see the pages of the calendar fly by almost a full month before they return with Santa. And it makes you go, well, what the hell were they doing this whole time? They probably were kidnapping every one of them.
They seem like the kind
bring back a leprechaun or something.
Yeah.
They seem like the kind of individuals that get distracted.
Well, yeah, that's probably true too. Actually, when they kidnapped the leprechaun, maybe he offered them some leprechaun gold, and maybe they gave him a week in Oogie's dungeon as punishment for that, or I don't know. It's possible. But
they're always after me, Lucky Charms.
Right. Of course, they do eventually bring back Santa, and you got the
Brittany,
Jack's
what
like.
Did you think about the kidnapping the Santa Claus moment? Brittany, what did you think about the kidnapping the Santa Claus moment?
Well, I mean, I enjoyed the scene. No matter what, I mean, it's a great thing. I do want to touch on something that Jacob kind of mentioned. There are 4 different palettes throughout this entire movie.
Right.
You have the gray, drowned-out palette of Halloween Town. You have the colorful sort of holiday palette that we have in Christmas Town, and we have the browns, sort of oranges and browns in the tree area, and then we have the neons with Oogie Boogie.
Well, there's also sort of a almost a pastel-ish sort of generic color palette for the real world. Yeah.
So, I mean, we get this lovely sort of feel for it, and with the kidnapping of Santa Claus, I've got to say, I enjoyed the scene. I did always, of course, laugh at the bunny moment because, I mean, who doesn't? But the Kidnapping Santa Claus is probably one of the more catchy songs that I catch myself singing every now and then.
Right.
What about you, Tammy?
The kidnapping, I just Santa's, he's upset and everything else, and he's still trying to be nice. He's like, where am I? What are you doing? Put me back and everything else. But he's still trying to be Santa.
I think it happens so fast. I think Santa is just confused like the entire time.
Well, yeah, he's totally confused, and he doesn't understand where he is, and Jack isn't helping much because he's just like, well, I'm trying to give you time off, and and trying to talk to him, and Santa's like, put me back.
Right, he shakes his hand. What a pleasure to meet you. Oh, you got hands, not claws at all.
Sorry, I know that you're trying to gloss over the story, but I wanted to get their input as well.
And actually, we haven't heard from Ron or Roger for a while. So, you guys have anything you want to throw out?
I was wondering where you guys had been, and really wondering where Mo is too, because we were getting good stuff from Mo, and then Ninja vanished. So, yeah, come on, guys, speak up.
I'm here. Yeah, the kidnapping was definitely a fun scene. I was thinking as soon as they were going to kidnap him, I'm like, okay, they're on the naughty list. I'm surprised Santa didn't mention that at all. That these, because they look at kids. Wearing masks, so I'm surprised they didn't say that they're on the naughty list or something. But yeah, it was really neat, and I do love that how Jack Menow, he's like, oh, you have real hands, not just claws. And at first I was like, why would you think he had claws? And then it dawned on me, oh, Santa Claus.
They called him Sandy Claus. They thought his name was Sandy Claus.
Sandy Claus.
So they thought he had actual claws. It's kind of cute almost.
And also, if you remember, Jack saw his shadow before, and it almost looked like he had Freddy Krueger hands. It almost did.
Well,
shadow.
I could see it like almost lobster claws, because it's like Sandy Claus.
It was funny they kept calling him Sandy Claus instead of Santa Claus.
Right. How about you, Roger?
Not much for me to say about what's going on with the kidnapping of Santa Claus, and then discovering that he has human hands, and then the plot ahead to take over Christmas and deliver the presents, which is actually the part I'm kind of saving to talk about.
All right, sounds good. We of course have a back-to-back couple of notable music numbers coming up here. We got the next one we've talked about, Oogie Boogie's song, which again I do find it fun. It has an old school swing vibe to it, like an old Cab Calloway vibe to it, which regardless of what I said at the beginning, I do enjoy that kind of music quite a bit. I like Cab Calloway. I like, and I've always thought this was a fun, and just his whole, when he actually really lets loose with the singing, the whole part, he's like, where he sings, because I'm a gambling boogeyman, although I don't play fair. I always love that line. I'm like, that's
my favorite song.
And it is great. It's definitely not something I would like listen to music like that style, but in cases like this or other musical types, it is a great style for a movie. So yeah, I definitely agree that it was really fun to listen to and have him do that as well.
Right. Probably my third or fourth favorite Disney villain song. I mean, nothing beats Be Prepared. That song just awesome. But this one's definitely high on the list, I think. And and then, of course, immediately after we have Sally's song, which is just her sort of it's sort of her pining for Jack, but also everything is doomed sort of thing. It's like such a sad, depressing song. But she does it. Catherine O'Hara does such a good job, I think, with the delivery of the song, and just those two scenes back to back, I think, that's just a great part in the film. Personally, I think, but I'm curious what the rest of y'all think on that.
Yeah, this is why I think that
song.
she's. That's like I said. That's why I don't think that she's necessarily unnecessary. I actually consider Oogie Boogie less necessary than her, which is sad because there is no need for a villain. He adds, but like her, he adds kind of an extra bit of style to the substance. Because again, this is a Christmas tale itself. You could have taken Boogie out entirely and still gotten the point across. The same thing by taking her out and gotten the point across. But again, they both add substance.
They're
to the
important
tale.
to the story. I don't think you could take any of these people out. Like I'm
story
not
could be
surprised
accomplished.
anybody would suggest that.
The story could be accomplished with it.
I agree with you there, Brennan. I mean, absolutely. Oogie Boogie is also kind of just sort of put on there to give us a villain.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's a little bit more memorable, in my opinion, than Sally is. And that's why I kind of feel like he's a little bit better. Because he's got that sort of darker tone villainry to him.
I mean, he's a cool character.
I don't know. I like both characters, but I remember Sally more than I remember Jack. Sally.
Well, Oogie Boogie is hardly in it.
She's always she's in all the memorabilia and stuff too. So as well as Jack.
That's the thing is she's more of the what does they call it?
She's the voice of reason, like, and Santa
she's
basically
the voice
says
of reason.
so.
Yeah, wasn't there a spin-off with her too?
Not that I'm aware of.
Oh, okay.
And like I say, she is more iconic. If you're talking about as far as sales are concerned, and you've got somebody for a lot of the little girls watching to look up to, it's little things like that, I guess I should say.
Right. And she has a very iconic look. Like Oogie Boogie's a sack. I mean, he does have kind of an iconic look, but it's arguably much less marketable. And incidentally, one thing that was interesting in the commentary was Henry Selick said that Jack was originally supposed to be all black, that they added the pinstripes because he just kind of disappeared. He was so slender to begin with that if he was all black, there was like no definition. So they added the pinstripes, and then they got this absolutely iconic look. And another thing was they fought Disney. They fought Disney to make sure that Jack did not have eyes. They has that skull. He's a skull, Disney wanted eyes.
He's a skeleton, yeah. They wanted to give him eyes? What the F?
They wanted eyes because eyes are cuter, or that something like that. And
well, he's plenty cute without him. I mean, have you seen how many plushes there are of him and how much they merchandise the shit out of this thing? It's like he's cute enough as he is, but like it is funny that those little things like that and those.
Well, they didn't want to scare the kiddies.
Exactly, but then Selick and Burton Selick and Burton stuck to their guns, and the movie was a success. And Disney clearly has realized that because they do not hesitate for marketing Jack's image now.
When Oogie Boogie gets killed and all the bugs are like going out of it and stuff, I like my body like shaked a little bit. Like the creep factor was just really high. I mean, I've watched so many horror movies and don't get creep factors like that. The only thing they usually do is spiders, and obviously these bugs, like him turning. There's just all these bugs. That's basically what the boogeyman was.
I think Boogie is such an excellent villain. Like, and that's I don't think anybody's really even done a creature like that, like since before or since, really.
Well, I mean, there have been
No.
various. So that part of the point of the boogeyman as a concept is that there is no definitive idea of exactly what that even is. That's part of the point, is that people say the boogeyman and it is this vague, undefinable concept, or indefinable concept. And so like even Michael Myers is referred to as the boogeyman, and he, his whole point is that he wears this expressionless mask. So it really kind of, you put all your fears into that. This Oogie Boogie is literally just a sack, and he's full of, instead of being full of shit, he's full of bugs. And it's like that's it's not that far off, from that idea, because bugs ultimately are around decay, much of the time. And so it's that same idea, is that someone's fault, someone's kind of a projection of our fears and our ideas of what fear is and that kind of stuff. So it stays true to that central idea of what the boogeyman is, while also just the fact that it's indefinable and vague.
Not to mention that
definitely
one of
unique.
Not to mention that one of the quote unquote bugs that first makes its appearance from Boogie is a spider. And that, of course, is one of the great archetypal fears that people have. But just the fear of bugs generally, there's so many people that have that fear. It seems like it's appropriate for, he could have just as easily been full of snakes. And I would have taken a little more offense if that was the case. But,
it's a snake in that one scene.
There might have been, I think, but certainly some of those other creatures like bats and whatever were hanging out in his lair. That's for sure.
So, something else that, speaking of people that are made of this, that, and the other thing. So obviously Sally is the Frankenstein's monster archetype of like something that's come together, all that, but she's actually filled with leaves.
So in a sense, she's also sort of like a scarecrow
so
in a.
A little bit, but she's got kind of a nature connection, but it's not like, I mean, it's technically, it is something dead. It's dead leaves, but it's not like we associate with decay in the way that we think about bugs, but she has like a nature connection, and that kind of ties her back to, I sense there's something in the wind. So it ties back into that. And it makes her something that's kind of the earth and kind of graceful, because we associate trees with grace and beauty and all that kind of stuff.
I don't know how I never made this connection before. I'm just now, wow, I need to look this up. But anyway, while I'm doing that, let's continue on to the Christmas Eve sequence where he does go and do all his. Well, first of all, we have Sally tries to. He's already she does her lament after his takeoff. That's right, because she dumped the fog juice into the fountain, and Zero's glowing nose saved the day, and then she wanders off and does her lament while Jack goes and does all his ill-fated stuff. Okay, you just I don't know if this was an intentional thing, nod to the show, but I'm just going to throw it out there because I freaking love all the members of Nickel Creek, and Christile is no exception. He has a CD called "How to Grow a Woman from the Ground," where the best track is a cover of Jack White's "Dead Leaves in the Dirty Ground." And I'm sitting there, and when you said that, I'm like, I wonder if he was thinking about Sally and Nightmare Before Christmas when he decided to do that. Because that's something that would be right up in his wheelhouse. So
he had a lot of wild influences on a lot of things, so maybe.
Yep. Quite a bit.
It's just interesting. I bring up the leaves thing because out of all the 10 billion Frankenstein either adaptations or homages or whatever, I've never seen one that is filled with leaves as like stuffing in a way.
I think they did that
unique.
Well, she's a
I think
rag
they
doll.
did that. I think they did that
Yeah.
intentionally to make it a little more family friendly. Because if it was like random slabs of meat, that would have not gone over as well.
Yeah. Well, and you're right. She's definitely more like a rag doll. I mean, and that's the thing with her is like, if it weren't for the fact that she was
they
like,
call her Sally the rag doll, like in official like things.
True.
yeah. Well, and if it weren't for the fact that she was like, assembled together from dead things and all that stuff, I mean, she's got a very nice design. Like she's very like tall and skinny and all that, but like they put in a special emphasis on like the shape of her legs, and she has like really shapely legs. But she's a very beautiful person and a very like good-hearted person and everything. So they put a lot of care into making her sweet and appealing and all that, and that's just another element to kind of make her something of a doll, just not in a conventional sense. So she has stuffing of sorts.
Right. So what do y'all think of the Christmas montage where Jack goes around playing Santa?
It's so good.
I love that. Yes.
Yeah, it's probably that's definitely the highlight of the show. Yeah, seeing him deliver the severed head to the
children
kid.
are screaming.
That scene with what did Santa bring you? And he brings out the head. That was, I think that was in all the promotional, like the commercials and stuff, if I remember. But that scene just sticks in the mind.
That would have been the best Christmas ever if you got an actual severed head. It'd be like, oh man,
like it was a shrunken head. Yeah, that was pretty quick. That was
yeah.
Some of the gifts are attacking people.
It seems like the parents are more like frightened of it though. Like I think that's what I enjoy the most of the scene, because the kids just seems to be like, "What is this?"
Yeah, well,
like some of the kids were genuinely frightened.
Yeah, if your gift is attacking you, that's one thing. But if it's something like a shrunken head,
the one with
it's like, oh man.
I love the gifts following them and attacking them. They're running in the room, and the toys are still trying to get in and attack them. And I think that was the best scene. I mean, the shrunken head was definitely really cool. I laughed when I saw that. It was great, but the toys was what got me the most. It was just really great.
So you're talking about the one with the duck and the weird cat bat thing, right?
The chase the little black kids upstairs.
One cool thing about that I don't know why I never picked up on this before I saw it written, and I'm like, oh man, why did I not pick up on that? One of the reasons Burton did not direct the film himself was that he was busy doing Batman Returns, and he'd already started pre-prep on Ed Wood. And those two toys represent, they were a nod to Batman Returns, because you got the duck is basically like the Penguin's duck. And the other weird creature was essentially the mascot of Max Shred's character of company. So that was kind of a fun little nod there that I don't know how I never picked up on that.
I didn't think of that until you just said
it. I knew something. There was something about those two.
Right.
Well, and clearly, this basic archetype or the basic structure for this kind of story, and a lot of the character archetypes are clearly on his mind, because then you look at like Max Shrek's suits, which basically look exactly like Jack's suits, and it's like, yeah, clearly this kind of thing was in his brain in some form or fashion.
And actually, if you remember, I never really noticed this either. Jack has a bow tie that's like a cat head, or I don't know if you call it a bow tie so much as like just like a clasp or whatever it is at his neck. That's like the mayor has the spider, of course, but Jack has a little cat. And again, Shrek's company has like the cat mascot, and of course ends up spawning Catwoman after a fashion. So there is that cat connection there. So, and he also has one of the characters is, I want to say it's the cleaver-headed dude, but you guys probably know better than I do. One of the characters is modeled on Tor Johnson, who of course starred in several Ed Wood movies.
Yeah.
So that might have been also a nod to his upcoming project. But
Gotta
yeah.
love poor Johnson.
But anywho, and so we got this thing where basically you got all these kids who are either scared or just don't really know what to make of what's going on, and their parents are freaking out, and the cops are taking call after call after call, and the military gets mobilized, and Jack's flying by, thinks all the screams are people happy, and just doesn't know any better.
And they're celebrating him when they're shooting at him. And,
yeah, they start firing ordnance at him, and he's like, "They're celebrating!" Whoa, a little close there.
You almost hit me.
Yeah. Wait, Zero, they're trying to hit us. You know, he has this big moment of, I guess, moment of clarity of, oh wait, they're not happy.
Us, yeah.
And then, of course, Jack fall down, go boom, and lands in a graveyard, and that's where he starts for Jack.
That leads into what have I done? Yeah.
Right.
Our character has his big moment of realization.
Well, after a fashion, he realizes that he screwed up, but yeah. What's up?
And that's the thing. That's where I was looking at this when you talk about the story. This really was the cusp of it, was realizing what it is and then going to fix it. And that's why I don't think, though it is entertaining adding Oogie Boogie to it or the other characters, going back and realizing it's all about his internal struggle in the end. That's really the enemy, is his own internal depression. Right. And that is finally the realization is a realization like, okay, I went overboard, and he hasn't really gotten to the point of I need to make the change, but that he is realizing this is not right.
And he makes a huge mistake, but he goes to fix it himself, which is a good.
Well, yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah, he goes to there might be time to set this right. He goes looking for Santa, and yeah, this is where he throws open the crypt and just goes right back into Halloween Town. And you've got they'd all watched it. Everyone had been watching this sort of like they were what am I trying to say? Like a scrying thing or whatever, a scrying pool where they were able to watch everything as it happened. And then, you know, when the mayor sees him goes down in flames, he goes around announcing that, oh, Jack is dead, you know. Which, you know, you kind of have to not think too hard on the idea that a dead character has died and is now gone. Like, it's kind of, you gotta wonder. That the filmmakers have acknowledged that's a slight plot hole there, but it's I guess
he's telling everybody that Jack is a pile of bones now.
Right?
Yeah,
it's a pile of dust.
Well, it's also
you're
funny.
Blown to
right
smithereens.
Oogie Boogie is you know, gonna kill Sally and Santa Claus, and she's like, wait till Jack comes back, and then it's now Jack's dead, and he's like, wait, what were you saying? Like, but
then, as after the mayor drives away, you see Jack creep in, and this is where you find out that Jack is full ninja, because he uses some sort of ninja substitution technique to take Sally and Santa's place, and surprise Oogie. And
I saw him crawl in that window, and he was pretty limber when he did that. So
yes,
I buy it.
He several times I heard Burton and Selleck and Elfman they kind of described him as sort of like almost like a cross between. I guess you could say almost like a cross between a spider and Gene Kelly in terms of like his movement. Like, you know, sort of really graceful, but also very skittery and kind of
Right.
yeah.
Well, especially when he was going after Oogie, and when he would crouch down,
Oh,
Yes.
he had that spider look. Really, I know that was something that hit me when he
Yeah.
was crouching down, and I was like, "Wow, he looks like a spider."
And that scene has some fun moments where you see him just being a badass, getting through all those gauntlets, and
Yeah.
Oogie just standing there smugly until, oh, wait a minute, I need to run away. I'm going to get.
Yeah, he was definitely afraid of him once he realized that his tricks weren't going to work.
No, I'm talking about the part where he was about to fall victim to his own trap because he wasn't paying attention.
Oh, yeah.
But then, of course, he loses a thread comes loose. He starts to unravel in a sense. And Jack, of course, latches hold and yanks, and Oogie loses his
skin.
He loses his skin, as it were, and then
Jack
loses
comes
his
off.
bugs. And you have that great little moment of Santa angrily smushing the last bug.
Yeah, that was great.
I always find that kind of fun. And then, of course, Santa gives Jack a piece of his mind. He's like, I've listened to her. She's the only one in this madhouse who makes any sense.
Yeah.
Actually, in the novelization, they kind of expand on that a little bit.
Right.
They kind of have some moments where you're in Santa's head as he's kind of like, what the hell is happening to me? And when it's like, I'm the boogeyman, and he's like, wait, you're the boogeyman that always scares the children? Like, you son of a bitch. And so he takes like extra satisfaction crushing that bug for that reason.
That makes sense. Yeah. You do get one great Santa POV moment in the film, and that's when he emerges from the bag.
And he's
you got
surrounded by freaks and monsters.
Surprised,
And
aren't you? It's like, yeah. Who wouldn't be? It's like, who wouldn't be in this situation? I don't know. But and then of course Santa, I like this little touch, like when he's like, of course there's to fix Christmas, of course there's still time. I'm Santa Claus, and then he very angrily touches his finger to his nose and goes up the chimney, which is like a nod to the poem, obviously, but you could almost say he's literally thumbing his nose at Jack at the same time. And it's so it's kind of he's kind of insulting him while also essentially doing what he's supposed to according to the poem. So I thought that was kind of a fun little touch there. But he obviously doesn't hold a grudge because, again, he goes around, he fixes everything, and then he comes back around and dropping snow, and he's like, Jack yells out, "Merry Christmas," and Santa comes back with "Happy Halloween."
Actually, Santa yelled it first.
Oh yeah, you're right. And then of course all the townspeople are like, "What's this?
What's this? What's this?"
You get that nice little reprise. Yeah.
After they see the snow, they finally start to get it. It's like,
they start to get it. Yes, you get the ones doing the snow angels, and of course, Lock, Shock, and Barrel are the kids with the snowball fight. Obviously.
And they hit Jack with a snowball.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious.
Right. And
then
you got
those ice skaters.
Yep. One funny thing there: the vampires doing their little hockey game. Supposedly they were originally they're like kicking around a jack-o'-lantern, I think it was.
Yeah.
Supposedly they were going to use Tim Burton's head, and then someone came back and said he might not like that. And then Henry Selick has said several times since then he regrets not simply asking Tim Burton, "Can I do this?" He backed down. And he has always regretted not asking him if he could do that.
I think that would have been great.
I think Tim Burton probably would have gone for it.
Oh, I think he definitely would have.
I think he would have too.
And meanwhile, that band that we keep seeing all around, the guy with the bass, that's supposed to be Danny Elfman's head in the bass. I don't know if y'all recognize that or not.
Actually, now that you mention it, that guy does look like Danny Elfman. Like, I never would have caught that without somebody like, hey, you should look closer at that.
Right. So, and then of course you get that nice little reprise at the end where it's not even a full song. It's just a few bars, but it's Jack and Sally finally saying what they wanted to say. And, you get that nice little scene on top of the icy hill. And again, I admit it might have been a little more touching if they developed it more, but it's still a really nice ending, I think, for the, story. And that's pretty much the plot of the film. Did anyone have anything else they want to do before we go into production and that sort of thing?
In the novelization, Santa and Jack become friends after this, and they supposedly sometimes hang out. And it's like, would you do that again? And it's like, well, they make a joke of it apparently.
Yeah, that could be interesting
after many years. And supposedly Sally and Jack have children somehow in that epilogue.
I had heard there was an epilogue with kids. I had heard that, but not with him and Santa being drinking buddies. But I could I could see that being kind of amusing.
They go and drink the eggnog.
They go over to the St. Patty's Day Galore and what's up?
Your mic is dying. What are you doing?
Yeah, you're really breaking up there.
Oh well.
All right. Well, we'll see while we're waiting for Dane to figure that out. Anyone else have something else they want to throw out at the moment? Anyone been sitting on any ideas? Okay.
I think I got everything I wanted to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think we hit a lot of the production stuff as we went. We've talked a little bit about the music. I will say, for my part, I think this is one of Danny Elfman's best moments musically. It's a very distinctive score.
I did hear a lot of in What's This when the elves were singing. That kind of reminded me of some of the Beetlejuice music.
Probably.
You can see it. You can see it all around with different things. I mean, even Pee-wee's Big Adventure to a point, you can see in this, because again, that art design is all super familiar with this.
Right. Well, I think Dave might have been talking more of the music, but yeah, I think all of that. Elfman does cannibalize himself a lot. We've talked about this before. A lot of but even so, some of these pieces are very, very distinctive amongst his overall pieces. Some of them do have a little bit of that Batman vibe. Some of them do have a bit of a Beetlejuice vibe. Some of them do have a little bit, I think probably a little bit of Edward Scissorhands thrown in there. But there's definitely, and there's some stuff he's come back to over the years, and I've always thought his Spider-Man score borrowed a lot from his Batman score. It's like I think he kind of hit that well again with that one, but but then and then again lyrically, a lot of these they're technically credited to Elfman, but supposedly most of the songs were written as collaborations between him and Burton, and it was kind of like I would
imagine that Burton probably sat in with Danny Elfman and was like nodding his head, being like, yeah, I like that, yeah. Well, what if we did this with the lyrics? That kind of thing.
Right. Basically, the way they described their process was basically that Burton would come in with a few lyrics, and he would come in with an idea of where he wants the scene to go, and they would discuss it until it triggered something for Elfman, and then he would shoo him out of the room, like, get. and then he'd take a few days, make the song, call him back, and then and that's kind of how they would do it. Supposedly, Elfman said that like when it comes to the actual composition, he likes to hit when the fire's hot as it is, and not get distracted. He said he can get distracted. But yeah, as far as the art direction, Brandon, like, you're right. There's a lot of through line between this and both earlier and later Burton works, and also later Selick works. Like, I never did see James and the Giant Peach. I need to, but definitely there's a lot of similarities with Coraline. No doubt about it.
And of course, I remember that. And of course, Corpse Bride is almost like a bridge between the two in a way.
Yeah,
it's very much similar to both.
Right.
So, I mean, that's. But I was always wondering how things might have turned out differently if there was less, I guess, studio guidance for something like Alice in Wonderland, where there was a lot of like, ooh, Tim Burton, this could be one of the creepiest, coolest looking Alice in Wonderlands. Like, yeah, could you imagine a Tim Burton's American McGee's Alice?
See, that was an unfortunate lost opportunity because Burton himself went on the record saying he never cared for Alice in Wonderland. And it's like, yes, everyone imagined he would be perfect for it. But when you really don't care about the property, you're probably not the best choice, you know?
That's just sad right there.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. Well, it was both him and Linda Wolverton both. They wanted to give the story more shape, and what they ended up doing that movie several times, and like it hangs together better than other of those types of things that you could see. It's just more generic than it should be, and it's kind of inappropriate for Alice in Wonderland, but like just as its own thing, you could do a lot worse with that formula.
And they did with the sequel.
I know, and it is telling that but he does, for the stuff that Tim Burton really does well and cares about. I think he does bring his personal touch to it. It's just more that it's not weird enough on the storytelling level. But in a way, it's like, well, but isn't that kind of is on to a certain degree, because the story is part of what it connects so well with people, is that they have enough about them that's externally strange. They internal, and like Edward Scissorhands, perfect example. That is like your classic, Frankenstein mixed with like Beauty and the Beast kind of story. It's just with the gloss of it is so characteristic of who he is, and this story, I would argue, is possibly one of his most original. But even then, it has its precedents, like the Grinch, like the Rankin Bass stuff, and it is a universal story, nonetheless.
And he did cite both of those, the Rankin Bass, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and the Grinch. He has cited both of those as major influences. And it's also worth noting one specific influence that he has cited that inspired the poem, which is, he said he was out. And mind you, this is the late 70s. Everyone talks about how bad Christmas is getting, how it comes earlier and earlier every year and all this stuff. But this was the late 70s. He said he was at a store where they were taking down the Halloween decorations and putting up the Christmas decorations. And just seeing the two side by side, he thought it would be great to see them, to combine the two and do something with both holidays. And that was the spark, supposedly, that started it. But so I guess at least one good thing has come out of that juxtaposition.
That's pretty interesting story. So they didn't even do Thanksgiving decoration; they skipped Thanksgiving, went right to Christmas.
Right, exactly. But and there was one other thing I was going to say, and I've totally forgotten. But anyway, So it had something to do with the production, but did anyone else have anything they want to really get into on the production? Oh, one notable thing on the production, or at least the legacy of this film, it was only up for one Oscar. Should have been up for some music Oscars, damn it.
Definitely, I agree with that.
But it was up for the Oscar for visual effects. And it's the first animated feature to get that nomination. And Leica Studios have...
There was no animated feature category back then.
Right.
Visually, this film was stunning at the time.
Yes. Well, I was going to say, Leica, which, of course, Selick directed Coraline for Leica, they have pulled that off with Kubo and the Two Strings. You see that occasionally. But it seems like the Academy is more willing to give that to stop motion than any other animation form. And really, in a sense, this is old school. There's a lot of puppetry involved here. I mean, there's clay work, there's puppetry, there's a lot involved, models and that sort of thing. But there's a lot of stuff that went to making each shot. And yes, I can see how, of course, being 93, I'm pretty sure the winner that year was Jurassic Park. I'd have to check, but I'm pretty sure it was. Which just makes it all the more stunning that year that it absolutely boggles the mind that neither this film nor Jurassic Park was nominated for original score. It just absolutely boggles the mind. I can't even explain that.
To be fair, the winner that year was Schindler's List,
which is probably why Jurassic Park didn't get it. It was probably a political thing. They wanted to make sure it went to that movie.
I remember there being.
But I think
Objectively, Jurassic Park is the better score in my mind. But
I actually think that Nightmare Before Christmas has a better score. But
that one's they're all three of them are incredible.
Well, the problem with it at this time of night.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I cannot think of the Jurassic Park thing. I keep thinking of the Weird Al cover.
That's a great one.
Appaloosa or whatever.
So he's scary in the dark.
Yes. Okay. That was someone turned the
I turned the fence off in the rain.
Yes, someone turned the fence off in the dark. But anyway, we have, let's see here. I guess we'll go ahead and do some favorites then. I guess we'll start with you, Dane, just in case you have any further mic issues. We'll let you go.
Am I still having mic issues? I mean,
well, not at the moment. Not at the moment.
Okay.
The thing did crash pretty hard, several times.
Let's do that. Well, I mean, problem with this movie is it's so great that it's I don't have too terribly much to add, but favorite scene, geez. I'll say this, my favorite shot, not surprisingly, is when he's in front of the moon and that whatever that is, that hill thing that is able to move down with him. I think it's a pretty incredible.
The uncurling hill. That's really good. That's a really good moment.
That's just such an iconic shot, even let alone scene. I don't even know if I can narrow it down to just one scene because everything kind of logically leads into the next thing. But I mean, probably that just as a shot. I mean, I think it's incredible to look at. It's that again. That's the thing with this movie is I don't have a whole lot to add. It's just it kind of speaks for itself.
All right, I'll be around.
Oh, excuse me.
Or crawl or whatever.
Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't recognize my own name.
I'm sorry.
going on? Who's wrong? Yeah, it is very, very difficult to say a favorite scene. I mean, there's a lot of scenes that are great, but there's I think probably the scene with Sally trying to rescue Santa Claus, where you see her leg in there, and Oogie Boogie's like, ooh, it goes over to the leg, and he's like tickling her foot, and I'm thinking, why isn't she laughing?
You see her hands twitch.
Yeah. And then her hands are untying him, and it's like basically she's all split apart, trying to save Santa Claus. And I think that's probably one of the best scenes. And again, I mean, if Sally isn't important, then you wouldn't have the boogeyman either, because if it wasn't for Sally, she wouldn't have saved him from the Santa from the boogeyman. Well, I mean, she didn't save him, but she tried, and she probably saved him in the fact that he might have killed Santa Claus sooner than Jack could have gotten there. So she might at least
she bought some time, yeah.
Yeah, she bought him some time.
So
that's my favorite scene. And I just want to mention that my favorite song is Halloween Town, just because it's just so damn catchy.
Actually,
I'm so familiar with this movie that I almost just didn't bother to rewatch it and just watched YouTube reactions. And that scene always got like a big one from like female reactors, because they were always really creeped out by how like into that Oogie Boogie was. They were like, ugh. It's like you're trying to make a dupe out of me, and she's like, well, you fell for it.
All right. Well, Dustin, how about you then? What's your favorite? And actually, go ahead and do your favorite song as well. And then when you do, we'll have Dane give his favorite song as well.
I think they're both the same for me. So I like Oogie Boogie's introduction and the Oogie Boogie song. Because it's so menacing. Because you hear people talk about Oogie Boogie, but you don't see him until that moment, and then it's like, oh, because Oogie Boogie's actually kind of, you get the impression that the only actually evil and dangerous creature in Halloween Town is Oogie Boogie, and so it's like, this is the one we got to stay away from. Yeah, and the whole gambling like thing that they gave him too was a really interesting like personality thing that they did. Like, I thought that was like really interesting how he has all this like dangerous gambling shit around, like the dice with the snakes and stuff.
Right.
I really enjoyed seeing all of that. So plus it's like so cool visually, and I'm trying to figure out a way to put this into words. Kind of like the weird sound he makes, whoa, like from the chorus. Like I really like that for some reason. Like, sometimes I just say that when I'm by myself. Whoa. I don't know why.
I don't know. I like backing vocals too, and I think that was a good use of that. I think the interesting use.
The moaning skeletons.
Exactly. All right. And again, Dane, did you have a favorite song or?
Probably This Is Halloween, just because it sets the tone so nicely. And as far as like, well, I already mentioned shot, but as far as like scene, that number might actually be it, just because again, just the amount of creativity and the pacing of it, the fact that it gets you into the world so fast and it's so energetic, but it's also got again a lot of freaky stuff that comes at you. It's the tone. It's just a good way to do it. It's a good way to end.
Good deal. All right. Dustin, were you done with your thing?
Yeah, I was done.
Okay, cool. Roger, how about you? Favorite scene or moment in the film, and what's your favorite song?
Well, I would think my favorite scene is really the kid taking out the shrunken head from the present and seeing his face, looking up at the parents, and parents looking at even more scared than the kid. And the kid is just completely, that's shut down.
Just like, what is
song,
this? Yeah.
No, I definitely didn't watch the show for the songs, unfortunately. But I do have to admit that "What's This" is kind of like is a catchy song. If I were to pick out one that stuck in my mind, it would be that one.
All right, good deal. How about you, Brandon?
The whole scene with them opening up the presents, obviously, and the kidnapping the Santa Claus song.
All right, Brittany.
I would have to say I'm kind of torn with the songs between Kidnapping Santa Claus and What's This. As far as favorite scene, I would actually say I kind of like the Christmas scene, or Christmas Town, when he goes into Christmas Town for the first time.
All right, good deal. How about you, Tammy? Tammy? Or I guess if she's away from the mic, Dave, do you want to go next?
Dave?
Okay.
Oh,
I guess I both
Tammy,
gone.
you're on mute.
Ah, okay.
What is everybody doing, man?
Is it me now?
Yeah, we hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I hear you now. I didn't hear anybody. I guess the song I like is called Jack's Lament.
All right.
That's a
And
good one.
my favorite
That's always
scene
good.
is I like it when they're making all the presents and they think these presents are so neat, and so there's like, really? You put the one was put
Right.
the, he put that rat on the guy's head as a hat, and he put and they, he's like, well, no, you can't make that. And then they had that turtle that was like all falling
Mhm.
apart. Well, no, you can't make that one. And they're sitting here trying to make presents, and none of these, and they think these are all great, and it's like, no.
Right.
Jack has to like coach them on you. It's like, no, this is a better present than that. Come on.
Right. You can't give them
Right.
that. You gotta,
And granted, Jack's guidance probably kept it from becoming even more
Even worse.
disastrous. But anyway,
And that's
what's
saying
that?
something.
What's that? A little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing. So, Dave, how about you? What's your favorite scenes, favorite songs?
Favorite song is "Kidnap the Santa Claus." Definitely. I just love the magical of the voices, where like some go one of them goes low, one of them goes high, and the other comes in the middle. It's like the weirdest, creepiest unison that you can hear in a song.
They harmonize well.
Three-part harmony.
Yeah. But favorite scene. I would have to say my favorite scene would probably be when they accidentally bring back the Easter Bunny. For some reason, when that dude just says, "Oh, bunny," it's just kind of funny.
Right.
I think his name is I think that guy's name is just Zombie or something.
Right. That would make sense, I guess. All right, and for me,
in all fairness, though, when we see a bunny, how many of us wouldn't want to say, "Oh, bunny"?
Yeah.
Well, now that I've seen this movie, that probably is how I'd have to say it. I mean, I think I have done that, but okay, my favorite. It's a hard one. This is such a good movie. There's so many good moments. I mean, the kid's expression when he pulls out the head, the kid's expression when he wakes up and scared shitless because of Jack had interrupted his dreams. Some of the sequences with the end of the movie, the very end of the movie. I mean, I'm a sucker for those kind of endings. I think it's fun. There's some, the part where Sally sees the tree go up in flames is a great little moment. Just and the whole Oogie Boogie sequence, the whole kidnap the Sandy Claus sequence. There's it's hard to pick a favorite. I don't. And even for the songs, and like I said, I was trying to come up with a list of my favorite Disney songs. And as much as I love Oogie Boogie's song, it's a toss-up between This Is Halloween and What's This? I can't decide. I just can't decide. It's they're all three are great songs, but the film is full of great songs. So
Really
I
is.
will mention one specific shot that we haven't mentioned yet, just because I was reading about how the filmmakers think it's the most impressive shot of the film, and I just thought I would throw it out there for y'all. And that's the scene in the wood where Jack goes to reach for the knob on the Christmas one, and it's like, this shiny Christmas ornament, so it's very, very, very reflective. And it reflects the entire wood, Jack, and all the trees and everything. And just think about that for a minute. They had to film that highly reflective surface without any cameras or anything showing up in the shot. And that's a very impressive scene when you think about it that way. And as I had to give them a shout out for that. I was like, that's kind of cool. But I know it's hard enough to do that in live action. If you're dealing with mirrors or things like that, it's hard enough to do a live action shot without getting things caught in the reflection. But so anyway, I guess that will about do her. We want to go ahead and start with our outros, I guess, and then who wants to? So I guess we'll start with you, Roger. Give us a quick little outro. Who you are, what you do.
Well, my name is Roger. I run Animation Collection Company. It's a small Facebook group that specializes in large-scale anime, manga, and figure collecting. Of course, one of my stated goals is to make sure I have the biggest anime collection in the state of Florida, and I can do it with the Super Grand Grid Array.
All right.
Actually, that reminds me, you might enjoy this, Roger. My Cooler Final Form figure came today.
Oh.
I pre-ordered it in March, and it took so long to get here that I forgot about it, and then it just showed up today, and it's like, oh wow, this is actually really amazing. Because it's to scale. It's to scale with the other Figure Arts figures, and it's awesome.
All right. Well, how about you, Dustin? Why don't you give us your outro?
I'm a horror collector living here in Milwaukee. I collect some other things too, as you just heard. And I have a YouTube channel where I show off my stuff. I have 20 videos ready to go as soon as I feel healthy enough to sit down and edit them. So the show here is pretty much the only creative thing I can handle right now. I have some horrible problem with my leg, which resulted in surgery a couple of weeks ago. It didn't actually fix my leg, but it fixed something else that was adjacent to my leg. So progress. And we're in recovery. So my content output is pretty low, but you can find me at the Crypt of Horrors anyway. So subscribe and make me feel worse about not uploading stuff so that I upload stuff.
All right. We all wish you speedy recovery, obviously. Carl, how about you? Give us a little outro. Who you are, what you do.
Well, as you guys might have heard, I'm Ron. And I'm disabled, so I'm not able to work. So basically, I watch movies, watch TV shows, and play games, and come on these podcasts. Listen, one other podcast with Dave. So that's about it.
All right, very good. Dane, you want to go sell who you are, what you do?
Yeah, so I'm Dan Kyle. I'm an independent filmmaker and film educator based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. This past October, I did a series called Oztober where I talked about 31 different Oz-related film and TV adaptations, and now I'm busy developing April in Wonderland for April 2022. Just busy assembling a lot of props, a lot of cast, some of whom are in this very virtual room, which is pretty cool. And I'll be talking about 30 different Wonderland adaptations and laying groundwork for bigger projects in the future that are all kind of connected. But yeah, just trying to introduce some filmmaking into just making them more than just reviews, trying to tell a story the whole month, which will be pretty exciting. It's a big undertaking though, but definitely stay tuned for that.
Sorry, I had I was muted. Okay. All right. So I guess we'll go ahead and hit Brittany next. Give us a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Hi, I'm Brittany.
Don't hit Brittany.
Don't hit me. My name is Brittany Johnson, aka Embry Arts. I am an artist, a writer, and now a VTuber of sorts. So you can catch me on YouTube doing live drawings on Saturdays, story readings on Thursdays, and gaming on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
What's an AVTuber?
A VTuber.
Oh, VTuber. I was like, AV, what?
All right.
What is a VTuber? Is that just like an all-encompassing thing, or?
It's a digital digital character puppeted through real life camera work.
Oh, sweet, nice.
Okay.
I watched this streamer called Hassan, and he was on with Code Miko or something, I think.
Yeah.
It was weird because apparently chat can like do things to like change your appearance like during streams.
Sometimes it's a lot of work to do, but yeah, if you have an agency you work with, you can definitely do that.
All right.
And they were just putting like terrible things. They were just putting terrible things across her face.
Oh, good times. All right, how about you, Tammy?
My name is Tammy. I'm David's fiance, and I've been getting into your movie discussions and learning more about the movies. And I have my own collections. I guess I'm not into all the production things and everything like everybody else. So my extra things is I'm good at cooking and baking, and I have fun with my 1972 Grand Prix in the summer.
All right, sounds good. I guess I'll probably, since Brandon and Dave are kind of the final voices here, I'll go ahead and go. I'm Kotobukijake. I'm a movie enthusiast, an anime fan, what have you, here in Central Virginia, where I co-host with SeptumSin on SeptumSin versus the World. Sorry, where we talk about all kinds of physical media. We had a very good discussion last week on the anime Penguin Drum. We'll be talking next week, I believe, on our viewing for the month of November. We do those kind of things as well as our pickup videos. And of course, I like to come hang out with these crazies for these lovely discussions, which we have been on a run of mostly pretty solid films lately, and I know we have a few more coming up, so that's kind of cool. And meanwhile, I like to do a lot of side projects. I keep very busy, 2 semi-regular jobs, plus trying to grow a native plant nursery. A friend and I 1 year into that project, and I've used Kickstarter to try and throw money into some movies, short films, documentaries, what have you. And I've got one hitting the festival circuit now that I put a little money into, and a couple more that are just getting going. So, yeah, my little taste, I guess, of film production, what have you. And I guess I will leave it at that for now. Brandon, why don't you go ahead and tell us about yourself?
Well, I'm SeptumSin, a SeptumSin versus the world. We like physical media here on the channel, and we are all about the collecting of mostly movies, but occasional other things now and again. And you can see pickup videos, other things like Jacob said before, and a lot of fun things. We also work with Inside Movies Galore, and I will follow Dave at the end to let you know what's coming up next week.
All right, and Dave, why don't you give us our final outro there?
Definitely. My name is David Streggy. I am one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore. So thank you for coming along with us on this journey of ours that we have been going along. We have started the festive season of our curriculum. And we plan to give you a lot more Christmas cheer coming up. But I also moonlight under a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, where I also podcast under that name with now Krull and Tammy as two of my sidekicks that are here. And I also go on and upload some video pickups of my own, where I show you exactly what I've picked up every week, couple of months now, because it's better if I just do it in one huge haul. But I also do my own video reviews from time to time, which I have to get back into once I get back to being at least 75%. But Brandon, why don't you tell us what more we have in store for these ladies and gentlemen that are out there waiting for their presents around this Christmas holiday?
Oh, the holiday season is well underway, but of course, we don't want to make the transition from Halloween to Christmas too quick, because we've got a lovely little film called Gremlins coming up next.
All right.
A beautiful film, one that has scared many a child and entertained them at the same time.
Alrighty.
All right.
Definitely awesome movie.
So, is that it?
And
good night, everybody.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned for more exciting things on our channel. So like, share, and subscribe, and just make sure that you make sure that Santa Claus is actually coming down that roof and not some creep or something like that. So
indeed.
Well, as Weird Al had said in Christmas at Ground Zero, if you hear someone come down your chimney, you better load your gun and shoot to kill.
and then in the night that Santa went crazy, that Santa does get killed after having killed many people.
Yes.
That's a great song. He eats Rudolph.
Silent I
All right.
So that's all, folks.
That's